Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Start looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough. On the face of all mankind, our numbers up and the dead won't sign. Go along to get along in the tide by the siren song. The flames are empty and the crypts are cracking open. The horde's upon you and you stand there frozen, waiting for the word. Stand in line and wait. Don't follow the strings to find out who is pulling. Just drink your poison, keep on laughing and drooling, eating your own flesh. The master always knows what's best. Worldwide genocide. The overlords of hungry parasites. They point the finger and the eagles fly. Raining fire, children die. Starving plague, paralyzed. Pile of bodies rotten, covered in fire. But no one wants to talk about it. Strings no more bowing to the masters. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday. It is what, the 20th of February? Is that right?
Let's check.
The 20th of February? Yeah, the 20th of February. My name's Cliff. I'm here in Carter County, Tennessee with my buddies.
Tim. Golf.
And howdy. And today is episode 24. As I said, we got into the 1 percentile of podcasts a few episodes ago. This one is called Sunday Gunday. We were talking about it for a while, about taking some friends of ours and some viewers of the shows out shooting. We're taking Tim to the range and letting him try out a few new weapons. And we did that today. We had a pretty good time, I think. I think everybody involved did. What
Yeah.
about you guys?
It was rad. It's been the first time I got to shoot in a long time since where ammo prices have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's like they're coming back down to normal. So it's like it kind of vindicates, being able to throw a few boxes up.
That's right. Pistol ammo is pretty much back to normal. Rifle ammo is still a little high, but it's getting there. It's nice to see under 50 cents a round for 5.56 ammo here and there. Usually it's right at about 50 right now. And 7.62 by 39 for AKs, that's down to 33, 34 cents a round.
That's
so
right at normal. What
Yeah,
it used to be.
yeah, we're
Pretty
getting
close.
there. We got down to about 26 cents a round if you bought 1,000 rounds
Yeah,
of the
that's times that we did
7.62.
that.
But then the old Russian ammo ban came through and kind of put a little damper on our situation. But we're getting back to normal because there are other countries that are manufacturing this ammo, and American companies are starting to.
Russian ammo ban go into effect.
It was this fall. I'm not sure exactly when it was. Maybe November.
Oh, was that
It was a
October?
little. It may have. I'm not for certain, but I know it was. At least third quarter last year is whenever it went in.
Yeah, it's not been long, but there are like Wolf Ammo. They make a lot of theirs. They have manufacturing facilities in Ukraine, Serbia. There's several Eastern European companies that are still manufacturing it, so it can be found.
Now, is it the ammo or is it guns too? Because I know when I bought that Taurus, the top of that gun says, I'm pretty sure Russia.
No,
No,
Taurus
it's
is a
Brazilian,
Brazil.
Is it Brazil?
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
it's my bullets over Russia.
Yeah.
I had
yeah.
nothing that was Russian
You were
other
using
than my
toll,
big muff
You're
pedal.
using toll ammo. and
Yeah.
That's Russian.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So they stopped the import of that. They stopped the ban of Russian guns years ago, which are the best made AKs, in pretty much most people's opinions. The Chinese imports, the Norinkos, are really nice too, but those have also been banned for import.
Yeah, and they were ridiculous beforehand on prices.
Yeah, they're if you find a set of Norinco furniture or a Polytech Legend, some of that old Chinese, mid '80s, that stuff is $500-600 just for the stock and handguard.
Mhm.
I'm not even sure what the rifles are trading for now.
God, I know, like over a decade ago, those were like $1,000-1,200 AKs back then.
Yeah, and it's Chinese, so that's kind of counterintuitive, but they actually made really good ones.
I mean,
Yeah,
are they good though?
Yeah, they're
very.
excellent.
Yeah,
They're
Is
some of the
that,
best.
Do you remember in the latter days of Acme, a guitar came in? Ooh, and I don't remember the name. So if the Fed comes looking for this, I'm sorry, I can't give you a name because I don't remember. There was this line of Gibson guitars that were making Les Pauls in China, and they looked identical to Les Pauls. And one came into our shop allegedly, that everybody thought it was, but it was really convincing. But you could get them for almost nothing online. And then since you can't stop someone from taking money online in China, and then you can't stop that guy from sending a guitar to an address in the United States, the Fed would actually just go to the place and be like, hey, you bought a guitar in China. You knew you weren't supposed to do this because it's breaking Gibson's trademark and all this sort of stuff. And so they would just take it out on the actual customer, because you can't punish people in another country. Right?
Wow, that's kind of crazy though,
Yeah.
because
This was 2000.
all you are is a consumer purchasing a product.
This
That
is
is up
2000.
to.
Well, at the time, it was considered. I keep doing this, and it's annoying. It was considered mainstream news to the Fed that you couldn't buy a Gibson Les Paul Standard online from not a Gibson dealer for $400 or something like that. And so they thought that you should know better. That you that the same way that you can't go somewhere and buy a set of Kanye West shoes for $5 off a street corner, expect them to be real, or if not stolen.
But that's not on you as the customer. That's on the person that's selling it.
I have
in
no
my
idea.
opinion.
I'm just that's
just the
what
way
that
it went.
reminded me of when
Yeah.
you said that there was Chinese manufactured AK-47. I wasn't aware of that. That reminds me. Was it the same thing where they just found out that the AK-47s were valuable, so they started making them, or were they making them for other countries?
Oh well,
Well,
I
no,
mean
they-
both. They made them for their military initially, right? And then there were a couple of companies that got those technical data packages. Polytech and Norinco made some excellent civilian versions that were semi-auto that were imported. So those are in really high demand now. And like those guitars you were talking about, but now you can AliExpress. you can go on now. They're actually pretty shitty copies. If you know anything about the actual guitars and know what to look for, you can tell it's not real. But they'll have Gibson logos, Fender logos, and to the undiscerning eye.
Well, the problem with it was, well, for example, back in I want to say it may have been before this. I know in the 70s, Ibanez was making a guitar that was identical to Gibson Les Pauls, and then you get to the top and it would just say Ibanez, and a really nice. I love those guitars. I really wish I could find
The
one.
lawsuit.
Yeah, the lawsuit. And so it really falls a lot in that same manner, because I know, well, I mean, China rips off. I was going to make a dad joke and say they're ripping off axes and guns. They're all about war.
Well, when the AK-47 was first produced, and we get into the different variants, most of them that we see today are actually AKMs or modernized versions of them.
Yeah.
But this one, when they first produced it, when Russia first produced it, they actually exported the technical data package to their satellite countries who joined the Warsaw Pact so they could actually manufacture these, including they did send that to China too. Some countries like Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia,
they were like, no, we're going to do our own thing.
And the same thing with Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was actually invaded by the Soviets, and when the Soviets didn't give them the technical data package, they supposedly got a Egyptian copy of an AK and reverse engineered it. So that's why when you look at the Yugo or the Serbians, everything's just a little bit off. They basically operate the same way, but you can't interchange parts with them like you can every other AKM. And that Serbian that I think we all shot it today that I brought, that's an example of that Yugo pattern rifle. But your standard AKMs are made in pretty much every other country, like except Dustin, like he said except Czechoslovakia.
I mean, there are parts you can use on a Yugo variant with a normal Warsaw Pact one, but like, okay, the VZ57, they're like the Czech gun. The only thing is like the sights,
Right.
This and the ammo.
And it operates in the same manner, but it's
the VZ is a striker fire.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's a striker fire. It runs completely different.
What about the VZ208 or 2208? Is it?
I'm not sure on that.
I think I heard it referred to as an SKS with extra steps. So that may be something totally different there, but
I'm not super familiar with that one.
Well, in any event, the Czechs were, like you said, they stood up to the Soviets, and they produced different variations. They used the same ammo as the Soviets, but they made their own versions of the guns, and they wanted to stay independent from the communist world order, as it were, but still be on semi-friendly terms, so they didn't get invaded. I think was more or less is that a fairly fair representation?
Yeah, and that is pretty much, and everyone knew it's like, hey, they excel at weapons making, so they're like, we'll let them do it.
They might make something better, and we can use that.
Even like the pistols, the Tokarov pistols, the 54,
the CZ52.
Yeah, 52. Duh.
Yep.
And even like the 82s, like the ones that were Makarovs, it's like they're completely different from the other Soviet variants.
Right. Well, I used to have a CZ52 that I finally traded away, and I've actually got some 7.62 by 25 that I need to give you because I have no use for it. But
mine still exploded into pieces where I was refinishing it. I just need to refinish the frame, just strip it down and put some more bluing on it, and then it'll be. I need to put it back together if I can remember how to put it back together.
I kind of regret getting rid of mine now, but
I would.
Yeah.
I would have regretted. It's like I know mine's in like 50 pieces right now, but I would have regretted it because I love that cartridge. I was like, it's a superior handgun cartridge.
It really is for penetration, for speed. You're talking a 1500 foot per second round.
It's
up
like
to 16 if you get into the hot
if you
machine
get
gun
the
loads.
machine gun loaded ones that pretty much only the CZ could run because it's roller operated.
Yeah, it has almost like it has a delayed blowback mechanism that's actually similar to the MG42. It's pretty cool little mechanism on it.
Don't MP5s use a similar?
I think they do.
Delayed roller blowback.
I think so.
I think.
I'm not that familiar with MP5 to be honest, but
I mean,
I believe you're right.
I haven't even fired one of the semi-auto clones. I've never been able to.
I've not either.
Know anyone that has one or not.
No, it'd be super fun though. That I see videos of like guys like Hickok shooting them full auto, and they just stay in a spot like that, and you're able to just hold it right on target. So So we had a good day at the range today. Real quick before we do any further and get into the Second Amendment talk, I'll show you a little bit of video of that. Now we're going to put up another video with some more content from our range day with that has some of the more of the guys that went with us. We actually had a fairly good crowd go out there,
Yep.
enough that we ran most of the other people off from the gun range. We didn't intend to. We were being very friendly, but we just took up a lot of space. We had a lot of weapons, and there was several of us.
Well, only 2 people, and they were pretty polite about it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's already dark anyway. We feel like it's slowing things down.
It was starting to get pretty dark when they got there.
And it got freaking cold too. We had
That
some
was
private land lined up, and that kind of fell through. But we're hoping we can go do that again and shoot some more fun stuff. Because the public range, you're pretty limited in what you can shoot. You know, your paper targets and cans and fruit and vegetables is.
It was fun that head of lettuce was.
Yes, it was.
Lettuce reacts very nicely.
Yeah, that's going to be one of my new favorite targets now. My plan was to get some cantaloupes and do some binary targets in those and see what happens, but we better not do that at the public range.
No, they really, it's like that's the way to get the cops up there fast.
I would like to. Well, really, like next time when we got like Cole to be up there too, because I ain't seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that'll be cool. You know, he had actually lost his father, so he wasn't able to go today. So our condolences to him. We appreciate the offer, and we definitely want to go with you when you're up to it. So just definitely give us a holler, and we'll get back out there and do some more. But without further ado, I'm going to roll that beautiful bean footage from our Sunday Gun Day. Maybe.
Howdy, folks. It's Cliff with Iron Mountain now. We're here with Tim and Dustin. We're at the shooting range like we told you we was going to do. We're going to run through a few different weapons and give Tim to try out the chance to try out some stuff he hasn't tried before. And we'll all try each other's weapons out, and it ought to be fun. We've got a few other guys here with us, some viewers and some friends of ours, so we'll throw some more clips your way. We'll see you here in a minute.
We got Goff here, fixing to squeeze off a few with his Polish AKMS. That's the sound of freedom, ladies and gentlemen. I actually was shooting it without anything on the muzzle, laying over top of my bag, and you can see where's my pistol bag over there. It tore to shreds. I'm going to get your target here, Dustin, if you don't care. Folks, as we look around here across the table at the shooting range here in Carter County, you can see why Emperor Hirohito from Japan said you don't want to invade the United States of America because there'd be a rifle behind every blade of grass, and he was right. But this is just a small group of guys. We got about 20 guns right here. And everybody's probably got a lot more at home. like you're pretty comfortable with that thing.
Huh?
Looks like you're pretty comfortable with that thing. Tim trying out the AR pistol with the red dot. Hey, you hit a can when I wasn't filming.
Did it?
Yeah, when I wasn't filming, you did.
I thought I didn't hit it. How many is that? How will you know when it's That's it? Okay.
Forgot to unmute the microphone, and sorry about that echo, folks. There's just so many little wires to get crossed when you're doing these live productions, so hopefully it didn't last too long into our Sunday Gunday, but that was our Sunday Gunday, and it was a lot of fun. We shot some fruit and vegetables and some soda cans. Had a good time. Had some actual targets there too, but I think we all had more fun just shooting the dirt and the mud and ice and
The
cans and lettuce and
The lettuce and
cantaloupe.
the rotten cantaloupe that was left up there. It makes a nice reaction.
I never
It's
would have
fun.
thought lettuce, but
It blew up. It's so cool.
it was super fun. I'm definitely shooting some lettuce again.
And like you said up at the range, you're like, it's cheap.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're talking $1.80 a head if it's not on sale, and you can shoot it a number of times before it flies to pieces. There were the lettuce that we were shooting was some that people had actually shot and left up there, and we kept shooting it, and it lasted us most of our range trip before we finally blew it to bits.
Yeah, as long as you don't hit it with something with too much behind it.
Yeah, I think most people were shooting it with Full Metal Jacket 9mm, so it didn't really do a whole lot but pass through it. But when we shot it with some rifles, it was and the shotgun that Dustin hit one with. Obliterated it. It was super fun. Hit it with double aught buck and
I did
boom.
nothing with that thing.
No, you were a little off with the shotgun, but you did pretty good with, especially with the red dot. You did good, and you were pretty close with the scope too. But that thing's a little bit tricky to use, so
If your
I
eye
feel like you
relief
did
isn't
pretty good.
Well, I felt like what was happening with the scope was like I'm bony and it's cold, and so it's like it's so sensitive. The dot was just
Yeah.
doing this, and I was like, focus on your breathing.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to when you're using magnification, especially. But well, my uncle always told me that people would say to him, "How do you hit stuff? Cause you're all over the place. You just gotta squeeze it between the wobbles. It's gonna wobble. You just gotta get in there and hit it at the right time." But you did pretty good, and especially that was your first time shooting an AK, wasn't it?
Definitely. The only thing I'd shot previously was a couple of handguns, including one big revolver that went over my head. Funny enough, the very first time I ever shot a gun was at PTL, which was a Christian amusement park in North Carolina a long time ago, back when, what was his name, that robbed the church and all that stuff.
I don't know.
How was it? We'll have to look it up anyway. There was he was Tammy Faye Baker's husband. Now he's trying to sell
Jim
soup
Baker,
buckets.
yeah.
Jim Baker he was the CEO of the company that owned PTL and a bunch of other stuff. He got caught with embezzlement issues. He now sells buckets of soup by the 5-gallon jug.
I had
to
no idea.
doomsday preppers. This is really funny if you ever look into it. But I went there as a kid, and I was so young I couldn't even pull the trigger. I had to have somebody else pull it. But I'm pretty sure it had to be an AR-15 at least, because it was a rifle. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, they do make 22 AR-15s, which we shot today. Or somebody brought one. Saw somebody shooting one. I didn't actually shoot it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's probably what it was. 22 AR-15. A lot of times they have it like carnival games and stuff. They used to have 22s. I think more commonly now it's probably air rifles.
Most of them use air rifles, and from as far back as I can remember, at least.
I
Yeah.
forget now. I went to go get some cocoa melon. And then
Yeah, his boy must be getting ready for bed. He'll rejoin us before too long. So we were talking about the Second Amendment and what was so important about it. I was going to, here in a minute, I'm going to pull up the state constitution. We'll talk about what Tennessee state's constitution says, because everyone's a little bit different. But the federal constitution, I'd say most of us probably have it, at least as gun guys, have it probably memorized, which is the oh, now I can't think of it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to a free state, or the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I think the wording of that is really important. And I think every word is there for a reason, and we need to look at that and understand what it actually means, because a lot of people try to get hung up on certain parts of it, like the well-regulated part, for example, which means something totally different,
It's
doesn't
totally
it?
different in the context, especially for the context of the speech back then.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, kind of in a nutshell, it's like regulated was well working, something that works efficiently. Like, kind of how a regulator works in like a gas tank, like to a propane tank or something like that. It keeps the flow, it keeps everything going.
That's right.
It's not regulating it like, hey, you can't have it, like
Well, nowadays we kind of get the idea
Kind of
that when we talk about regulation, everybody kind of thinks of government regulation. But this was something totally different. Like Dustin said, it means in good working order. And actually, we had regulator clocks at the time that were used for the trains, for example. And what a regulator clock was a timepiece that had every mechanism on a different set. So you had minutes were their own thing. The hours were on their own thing. They didn't have dates and things like this. It was made to be kept as precisely as possible to keep the trains regulated in good working order. And this was invented, in the early or the 18th century, the mid 18th century. They came up with the regulator clock, and it became in common use around the time that the Constitution was written, and even more common use when the railroads came around. But the you hear a lot of people say well-regulated militia. That means that the government needs to oversee everything that you do with it, and that's just not the case. And there's a couple other things in there that people tend to gloss over, and they say, well, this just means the guns are for the militia. But I think they very clearly spell it out that the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Yes, because the people are the militia. And there was actually, if you go into, gosh, I'm drawing a blank now, but a lot of the writings for what that actually meant, and there, where was it where it says every man should have a rifle and 20 rounds of ammunition and be able to muster, and I can't remember what document that was in. It was in one of the founding documents there somewhere.
Yeah,
but it's been a long time since I read that stuff. But the point is, you were supposed to be ready for whatever reason in order to defend your local area, whether it be if the state needed to call you up, or if there was just a bunch of bandits in your neighborhood. Everybody needed to be ready to take action, however was appropriate at the time. So every man was expected to have a rifle. Not only should you have one to protect your home and protect your family, but you were also supposed to do it in case you were needed to muster as part of the militia, like the Over Mountain Men did when we talked about in episode 2 of this show. Those Over Mountain Men had everything they needed, and when they were called up and their local area needed them, they were ready to go, and they were well regulated.
Why the Minutemen, the nickname for it, because you needed to be ready to go on the minute's notice.
That's right. So the people, and actually the United States was never intended to have a standing army. Also, it was expressly prohibited because the people were its army. The people that could form the militia on the local level. You had local militia captains that kept everybody trained, and we've kind of gotten away from that. And a lot of people think that the National Guard is that, but it's not, is it? It's a totally different thing. And we actually have State Guard here in Tennessee too, which is more closely related to what the militia was intended. It would be the State Guard, but the National Guard is something totally different. And we were supposed to have a constant navy. Because you always, had to have sea power to be able to. If you think about the nations at the time, Spain and England, those guys were super advanced naval warfare, and really we couldn't compete with them, but we still had to be able to stop them if they were to come to our shores. So that's a couple of the misconceptions around the Second Amendment. But as we look into the order in the Constitution, the First Amendment, I think that is the most important, because that's your right to speech, religion, your right to petition the government. So and the right of the free press. So if there's a problem, if there is a tyrannical government or a government is taking tyrannical action, we have to have that ability to tell one another about it before we could ever resist it. So or whatever it is we needed to do, and that's why the First Amendment came first, and then the Second Amendment was right after that, because what are you going to do about it once that government is tyrannical? And this is what it was intended, because the founders of our country had just overthrown a tyrannical government from across the way. So that's exactly why they had intended for us to have the Second Amendment, was in case the government became tyrannical, then you had to have some means to be able to replace this government if they decided that they were going to take action against you and imprison you or kill you or whatever it is they were going to do. What are you going to do about it if you're not able to defend yourself? And here's another thing, with equal armaments. And we recently heard Joe Biden say that you could not buy a cannon, and that the Second Amendment did not protect your right to buy a cannon. That's a very ignorant statement by our president. Because you couldn't you?
I've seen
And-
people write their own cannons.
Yeah, it was really common. There you would have a cannon in the barn in many people's homes in colonial days, because they were again part of the militia who was, if they needed to be called up to defend the town, then they would want to have equal armaments to the force that they were facing. So I don't like the idea that the government is the only one that can own these weapons, and the government is the only one that is able to. I'm personally, I'm an extremist, I guess you could say, when it comes to the Second Amendment, in that I believe that it should be exercised as written, and the words keep and bear means to own and carry with you. So this means the federal government may not prohibit. This is not saying we have the right to own these guns because the federal government says we're Americans, we have the right. We have the right because we're free human beings, and the federal government does not have the right to remove that from us, and it's expressly written in the Constitution. And I think that it's very clear why that is.
I fully agree. There's way too many restrictions already.
Well, we had one candidate locally in our first district here in Tennessee in the federal elections that ran for the House. She didn't win the primary, but she ran in the primary. Her name was, she ran in the Republican primary. Her name was Nicole Williams, and she was right there with us on. She believes that you ought to own it. If you want to own a tank, that you can, which you can own a
You
tank.
can own a tank.
Um,
The only thing is
the
just
blonde one with the denim jacket.
Yeah.
I know I'm visual. I'm sorry. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
Was this?
Well, I remember because I heard her on Scotty Campbell's show. He's the state representative out of Johnston and Carter County, and he had a radio show on Super Talk 92.9. And I heard her on there, and the first thing she said was it was colder than a witch's tit. And Scotty didn't know how to react to that. That stuck her in my mind right there. But then when I heard what she was espousing for her views on the federal government, I was definitely in, and so I did vote for her, and I hope she'll run again. I don't know what to make of our federal rep Harshbarger right now. She's seems okay, but I don't really know.
I mean, I'm no.
Is she the one? Well, I will say that wasn't there a recent thing where they tried to get all the congressmen to collectively show where all their money was going, and relatively few Republicans refused to do it, but she was one of the ones that did.
And she refused.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure, and then I think they backtracked and found out that she was pretty heavily invested in some of the stuff they named off. I thought they would kind of fearmonger on, because it's like, do you think she did this personally, or do you think her stockbroker person made it poor? I don't know how I don't necessarily think that works, but I don't think her as a politician, as much as I don't like them, they're grubby, I don't think they waste their time with portfolios. I think they pay people to do that for them.
Well, that's, for example, like Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene was in the news because she was vocally anti-vaccine mandate, and it came up that some news did some diving that she was invested in big pharma, as far as Pfizer. She was invested in them, and they came to her and they were saying, "Look, you're a hypocrite because you're invested in these companies and you're against these mandates." And well, she was like, "Well, number one, I'm not against people getting that drug if they want to, but number two, I have a person who picks all these things for me because I'm in office, and it would be wrong for me to pick a stock and then vote to go one way or the other." And actually, by being against the mandates, she was probably hurting her bottom line. And then again, I got to thinking, are they trying to bait her into directing her accountant to sell these stocks so they can accuse her of insider trading? I don't know. But at any event, you see a lot of that stuff. But I think the thing that Harshbarger did that I saw that I was that I liked was she was against a lot of the COVID lockdown and restrictions and mandates. So she may do some other stuff that I don't like. I don't know. She definitely wasn't my first pick to be our representative, but
I think
we'll see
I
what she does.
remember in some like what do you call them, petitions that I signed, to keep some of the especially anti-gun laws from passing back whenever they were trying to push them heavy at the beginning of this administration. I actually got a call from her office, one of her people from her office saying that she actually got all these emails and stuff that were sent, and that she's voting against all of it.
Oh, that's cool.
So I was like, I mean, I don't know. I still haven't looked into, since I don't follow a lot of political.
She did have
for them.
She did send out a mailer with her holding an AR. So
Who?
Harshbarger. So we got a political mailer during the election. We got a chat here from Vacant Jot says those Tommy gun machine guns and amusement parks are rad. I think that's probably what that's what we were talking about. Those things are super
where
fun.
you can't quite get them across because by the time you get to the top, the paper's not even hard to I've never seen anyone win that one.
I don't know. They have the ones where you can just they're fully auto and you just shoot out the paper and it's just knocks out the little pieces of paper. Yeah. That's the only ones I've seen. You're basically just trying to hold it on the bullseye as long as you can.
The PTL were actually machine guns because the right wing extremists that the left keeps fear mongering about, they've not seen them. I saw it growing up. That was a real thing where they were like, "Here you go, little Johnny," when the earth, because they really thought that was coming. And I don't see those people the way I used to see them anymore. So that's why I do kind of call it as a little bit of fear mongering.
Maybe they're already underground in their bunkers.
Maybe they are. They're not organized enough, because by the time what happens in the stages of a cult is, and you call it a cult even if the leader's not fucking you or anything like that. What happens is they break away, they build their own little thing, and they start dating within the church, and it always ends up breaking up amongst those sort of things. But within the PTL the situation with PTL was, Jim, I think Jim Baker got busted. I don't think Tammy Faye got busted for it. He got busted for embezzlement. I guess he saw that spread of money just out there and was like, I think I'm just going to start taking a big piece of this pie. So I have no idea. That was a big organization. It wasn't just an amusement park. It was other media outlets.
That's right in front of you.
It was big time at the time.
It's covering your face.
But anyway, back to guns.
Back to
Whatever
guns.
you were talking about. I'm sorry.
Well, we were on. I was
Everything.
going to hit on the state constitution, because we were on the Second Amendment there of the federal constitution, part of the Bill of Rights. A lot of people probably haven't read the state constitution or looked it over. It's a little different from the federal constitution because we have what's called a Declaration of Rights, and more or less it says that first of all the power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority, instituted for peace, safety, and happiness, for the advancement of those ends, and have at all times an inalienable right and indefeasible right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. That's Section 1 of our Tennessee Constitution, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, we go down, I'm going to skip over a lot of this because we're just talking about guns today, but we're going to look at Section 26 of the state constitution. This is our Declaration of Rights. So the citizens of this state have a right to keep and bear arms for their common defense, but the legislature shall have the power by law to regulate the wearing of arms with a view to prevent crime. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the end of that, but at the same time, when this constitution was written, the idea was that each state would be their own basic laboratory of governance. You had the federal constitution that said that the federal government may not ban these things, may not ban guns, and that the federal government may not infringe upon your speech. But realistically, when this first happened, until I think it was the 14th Amendment that kind of granted all protections in one state to anybody in other states. But initially, if you wanted to have a state like, say, Virginia, you wanted to be a religious theocracy, you could do that. Just the federal government couldn't do that. If you wanted to have a state that banned guns, you could do that. Just the federal government couldn't do it. So Tennessee did protect that, and they did give the power to the legislature to wear these arms, or to regulate the wearing of arms. And that's kind of a contentious part of it, because with a view to prevent crime, how do you do that? Do you force people to carry concealed, and you think that's going to stop crime? Do you force people to carry open? Do you think that's going to stop crime? Do you have certain areas where you cannot carry? That kind of all seems like it could fall under that, and we do have areas like that. Like you can't carry in a school, you can't carry in certain venues that have signs on the door from the government, courthouses, things like that. So that probably is the kind of thing they had in mind. but the the Tennessee state legislature for many years we had a different version of the permitting system where you would go, I think it was 1996 is when this changed. If you wanted a concealed weapons permit, you would just go to your sheriff, you would talk to him, they'd give you a little piece of paper, you'd fill it out, and unless you were a felon, they would give you your concealed carry permit. Well, Tennessee changed that in the mid 90s. I think it was 96. And they went to a concealed carry permit system that had to go through the state. Now, as I started to get into on the last episode, we actually had, surprisingly enough, our Governor Bill Lee, who I still want to get our buddy Jack Pendergrass on to talk about his connections, allegedly, to the Communist Party, because I definitely want to know if there's something like that going on. And Jack says that there is, and we're going to get him on. He's been doing a lot of media lately with a little bit bigger folks, so he'll make some time for us. But he's been doing a lot of stuff on child trafficking and this company called Maximus that people have been wanting a lot of his time for. So hopefully he can get on to, I want to ask him a little bit about Maximus, but I also want to talk to him, mostly I want to talk to him about Bill Lee, and he's from Chattanooga, and he's a former big farmer operator is what he calls himself. So I'm looking forward to getting him on. But at any rate, we have Bill Lee in the office right now, and one of his things that he pushed for was the constitutional carry or the permitless carry for Tennessee. And what that means is if you don't have a permit, you can carry open or concealed as except for in the restricted areas that we talked about. Now, if you do have a permit, you can carry on universities if you have the enhanced carry permit. So you still have to have that to be able, if you're a college student and you want to carry, you still have to have that.
Or to carry on out of state lines.
That's right, yeah. But didn't Virginia end their reciprocity agreement with Tennessee?
They, as far as I know, they changed it back.
They
'cause
did?
there was too much flack, especially like how Bristol, it's like you have like one city in two states, and you're like, how
It's
can
almost
you?
impossible to drive. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah.
So that would be and it's not just Bristol, Tennessee. There's other parts of Tennessee that are so close to what is it? There's one because when on top of Tennessee, the Tennessee sales tax is so high that it's very common to go like buy furniture in North Carolina for example.
Right, because they have a state income tax and a lower sales tax.
Yeah, so it's we're so close to everybody's hopping the state to go, or I don't know if people still are. In this
Oh yeah, I'm
day
sure
and
they
age.
are.
So guns are a lot different than a sofa. So
Well, I don't think they should be, but
no, I'm not saying it.
no,
from
but they
a
are.
point of,
Yeah,
like,
they are from the law's perspective. Yeah, I agree.
Man, you know what earmarks are?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying like I remember reading one of the most absurd ones a long time ago. Can't even tell you where it was, but there was one that this big bill had a bunch of stuff. It was used as an example. Like, hey, you need to look at this bill and then look at some of the insanely stupid stuff that's inside of it. And I remember looking inside of just randomly, and it was for like no taxation on some kind of wood. And it turned out it was supposed to be made because some guy had a resort that was for like native stuff, and they made arrowheads out of it. And it's like, so they really micromanage these things down to really itty bitty things to get these bills passed and stuff. If you're going to micromanage, because it was such a small little thing that this one guy was only going to vote for this bill if the taxes on a certain kind of generic cheap wood would be levied, so he could make knockoff arrows for his.
Sorry, I didn't mean to spit on your tips.
You know what I'm saying? But it's just so funny when you look at how dumb that crap is. So anyway, sorry.
No, I agree. There's a lot of that stuff where people. We were talking about King of the Hill a few episodes ago.
Bar measure S, I'm pretty sure.
Well, there was bond measure,
Bond measure S.
but that wasn't the one I was going to talk about actually, because I was talking with my wife and she was talking to me about an episode, and she said that just kind of sums up the whole government right there. And in this episode, there was a character who, well, they started installing, yeah. So
That's a good episode.
so Hank, he has new low flow toilets installed into his house in order to save water, but then they don't flush anything, and there's a real common problem with everybody else in the town. But then Hank goes on to find out that one of the town councilmen or somebody like this has a company that makes toilet fixtures, and they have made the law to where you have to install a low flow toilet in the town if you want to install a new toilet. So every time somebody was replacing their toilet, they had to put in one that was owned by this company that was made by this company that was owned by one of the town council members who made the law. And Hank successfully gets that measure removed, which rarely happens in real life because people rarely take enough interest in it to do anything about it. So. And we've just been joined by my puppy dog Stock, who's usually he's my mean one, but he's not barking at Tim or trying to bite him, so that's good.
Well, yeah, also even consider that nobody's paying attention to how much the taxes are on wood. You know, like
Right, who's paying attention to that?
I brought up nitrocellulose paint on guitars a couple episodes back about how nobody would even think to check on something like it. You know about that, where you have to pay a fee to the EPA to use it. You can totally still use it. You just have to pay them $100 to use it on this guitar. And there's a lot of reasons to even wonder why that would be done. But one of the theories is that's a very sought after paint. Like it's the only kind of the reason the guitars from like 60s and 70s and 50s, the reason they age so nicely in the whites is because of that paint. It patina's really nice. It almost looks like you've been chain smoking in bars around the white turns yellow, that sort of thing, and it just looks nicer. And so the theory behind it is a lot of people actually, I can put my leg down, you can see them. The theory is that people in power only got the EPA to make that a banned paint or a finable paint, I guess would be the way to put it. So top tier, it would only be available to top tier instruments to begin with. Which I guess if that's true, then Karma did them in the ass because Gibson's not been doing so good.
Well, that sounds very similar to what we were talking about several episodes back, and we've mentioned it in several episodes.
That was GNL. That was really the one that was hyping that. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like with what we were talking about with the cap and trades system, the cap and trade scheme, I'll call it, that has been suggested and advocated for by a lot of the globalist people that we were talking about that are supportive of the fourth industrial revolution, and that is to basically, you can use as much carbon if you want if you are a large manufacturer or large producer or something. You just have to pay to be able to use it. The rest of us just can't use it because we can't afford to pay the fine. So it's really not a scheme to control the amount of carbon being used. It's it's a scheme to control who can use the carbon, in my opinion. And I think
kind of a caveat is sort of the thing, with how full auto is regulated in this country. It's like if you have money, there's no issue, but you have to have the money.
And people will say, well, should you be able to own a machine gun or a tank? It's like, well, you can. You just have to be rich.
Money.
How do you do that? Like,
you just have to.
I know you can't. I can't own a an automatic.
No, you can own it. If you find an AK-47 that's automatic made before 1986, they're imported before 1986. Is that right?
I think if it's just manufactured.
Okay, so if you find one that is made or imported, I'm not sure which, but either way, you can purchase that and you can shoot it fully auto.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's going to run you $20,000-$30,000 for just about any machine gun, with any pre-1986 machine gun.
You can't buy new automatics. Correct?
Yeah, you have to have a class 3.
Like what keeps
for
people...
new automatics? You can get them, but they're NFA stuff. You have to go through like a bunch. You have to get a thing called a trust to get a hold of those, to get like a newer...
Okay, well, I'll give you another example of the same sort of...
Which, more money and time, and then you really have to involve the government to it.
I would call this racketeering, because you're just squeezing... You're saying that only a few people are allowed to do this, and so obviously, or I guess it would be obvious, only the people who are interested that also have the money are going to be the ones that absorb it. But after 9/11 happened, the airline became a nightmare, like to travel. I know that sounds really bitchy for somebody to complain about in modern times. Oh no, airline travel. Y'all, it's awful. It really is.
I don't fly.
Dude, I will drive. I swear to God, I hate flying so bad. I will drive 9 hours before I'll fly, even though it'll take 2 hours to do it. It's just such an unbearable thing it's an unbearable thing that they've turned it into. It has nothing to do even with the mask.
And they've not stopped any terrorists with those actions. And they found that when they tested the security measures, they let over 90% of the things through. When the TSA was being tested by the government to see if they were actually effective, they let over 90% of the things through. They let guns and stuff through all the time. So why are we still getting scanned everywhere? I'll tell you why. It's Nate Hashaway from King of the Hill. His name's Michael Chertoff. And the Chertoff group, right after 9/11, he was in the Bush administration, and what do you know? They passed a law that all those X-ray scanners that his company made had to go into use around the country in all the airports. You started having to take off your shoes but they didn't stop anything, and we're all still doing it. And now all those measures that came around after 9/11 that were largely supported by Republicans and folks on the right, they're starting to realize that those are going to be turned on us now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lefties at the time realized that and tried to tell us that. And now they're doing the same thing with their regulation and COVID measures and all this stuff. It's all going to be turned on you eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about government power, the idea is, well, let's get power so we can make things our way. My thing is, let's just remove most of the power from the government so it's not able to control how people live. That way, if you want to smoke weed and marry your best guy friend from down the road, and you can do that. If you want to not do things like that and you want to own machine guns, then that's up to you. But we have a government that tends to regulate most facets of our lives now, especially when you get down to the county and state kind of have more authority in my mind because they're closer to you, and you can actually affect change in those things. And if
you kind of see it a little more, so you can kind of be like, hey, why did you all do this after we were saying no, but you all still passed this and did this? Or you can find their paper trails easier.
That's right.
My cherry on top, I forgot, with the TSA, so we can move on. Now there's a thing that you can do that if you fly enough and you're willing to go through enough hoops, you can skip the whole thing. Like, they've made it so inconvenient to get on the plane, because this had nothing to do with masks. The mask, I don't care. Being on the plane is already so awful. Wrapping something around your face is just like, well, fuck it at this point.
They
I don't
pump
care.
oxygen in the cab anyway, so you're kind of...
Yeah. But it's just a process that now people who fly enough will pay a lot more just to skip the whole line. And that is just such a huge flaw in the logic, that you're going to say that these terrorists are so super funded that you're afraid of a dirty bomb, but you don't think that they're long con minded enough to go, hey, if I'm a model citizen for 15 years, I could blow up another building.
Well, I mean, if they were that determined, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's just a flaw in the logic. It was never about that to begin with. They took advantage. Rahm Emanuel, I think it's his name, never let a crisis go to waste.
Never let a good crisis
And that's
go to
not
waste.
saying that they create the crisis. That's saying when they see the shit hit the fan, they go, oh, good. People are going to be really scared of this now. How can we make it to where we can get money out of it?
And power.
Yeah, and so that's just crazy. What were you talking about before I said cherry on top?
I don't remember. And so one of the things about this show, it just kind of goes, I'm bad about, and if people who've been watching this program with us for a while have recognized this, I'm really bad to start a point and then just leave it out there and move on to something else. And I'm sorry.
It's kind of all are, though.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of the nature of the conversational aspect of this program is we're going to say things that are going to tip the other person. The other person's we may say something tips our own mind and forget to make the point. So it's real easy to do that, and I apologize for when we do that. We're about an hour in, almost an hour in. I want to thank y'all for joining us. We're going to do a little bit more, but I think we've mostly gone over why the Second Amendment is important, what it actually means, and what it doesn't mean. So, Tim, did you said you grew up around folks who were kind of more on the extreme religious right. Did you find that they just said, screw it, we're going to do what we want as far as stuff like that goes, and they just
well,
as far as owning guns and things like that, did they, were they compliant with the law and,
Well, I was a kid, so I have no idea.
Oh, you were pretty young.
It was the 80s,
Okay,
early
gotcha.
80s, so I don't remember.
Okay, I was thinking more 90s.
No, it was the early 80s back when I was in that environment. And I'll be honest, like, even the gun aspect of it was not what I want to even shit on.
Right.
Because the reason they were the way they were is because we were in a church where the leadership was so active in preaching the end times that it attracted people who already wanted to build a fallout shelter, and now you just gave them a reason to do it.
Right.
And so a couple of people started building those Sarah Connor bunkers, where they had all kinds of crazy crazy amount of guns.
Murphy
is what I
Brown,
would
that's
call
who
it.
my wife said you looked like from
Murphy.
behind. Sorry.
Well, Murphy Brown has an authoritative presence about her. So
She
I'm gonna
really
take-
does.
I'm
She
gonna
really
take the compliment.
Take it in
from
stride.
a no nonsense woman.
Well, I think that means you have pretty hair.
That's good. It's getting a little. I saw it look like Sarah Connor in the picture when we were shooting his guns because it had like a little bit of a silver.
You're
sheen.
getting silvery in the video. Yeah, it doesn't look that way from
Well,
here.
I've got COVID hair right now. I've not cut it in a
Oh.
while. But I don't think they would break the law or anything because I don't remember anything being automatic. I remember one of them was an M16, which is a 3-round burst. Right.
Well, that I mean, there is a 3-round burst.
It
in
depends
16,
on which, yeah.
but that would have been. I mean, if it was pre 1986, again, that would have been.
Yeah.
It would have been legal.
This would have been PTO. I would have been 4.
Yeah. Well,
So-
as long as they got it before then, so once you have it, it's grandfathered in if it's pre 1986.
Yeah, well, plus, I mean, yes, I know we were shooting things and I could see the target breaking. Did they hand me? I know they handed me a real gun, and they were doing it to everybody because it was. I mean, like it was like a bunch of hillbillies. Like in case somebody just stumbled onto the stream, they're like, "What the hell are they talking about?" It wasn't like 6 hillbillies around a campfire going, "Here, Junior, shoot off this AK." It was a literal firing range. Like
Not
the
that
one
there's
you see
anything
at
wrong with that.
Barnett. I would argue a little bit different because I do think you need to teach kids how to take care of themselves.
Well, obviously, you wouldn't just hand it to them.
I think that every generation has been regressed in a maturity level,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a negative. But when you're telling kids that you need to learn how to shoot this gun because one day, one day they're going to kill you because you love Jesus, I think you're pushing it. I think you need to let people know that, hey, every now and then people go crazy and they start chopping each other's heads off for reasons that don't make sense to you, and you need to be prepared in case they pick your people
Right.
to be the scapegoat. But they really set up all the kids in that area to really have I guess a me versus them sort of mindset about the world. And I guess that's what I'm against.
Okay.
Is the world
Well-
can be good.
Yeah, and I definitely don't not advocate just handing a child a firearm and just let it rip. You definitely want to go through the safety procedures. And yeah, Stock is so handsome, my puppy dog. Let me get him up here. There he is. Hello, Stock.
Sucker
He snuck his way into the studio. Yeah,
Invisible guest tonight.
yeah. He's actually a red heeler and pug mix, so that's a bit of a curious combination. But
Cattle
he's
pug.
yes, that's right. He's
Have you
our
ever seen
snuggle nose
Tonka
cattle
by any
pug.
chance? Brandon Church's dog.
Yeah, he actually passed
Uh,
away.
Did he die? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. If Cripple, if you find this, I'm sorry your dog passed. I like Tonka. They have the same sort of face. I'm
They
wondering
kind
if,
of, except yeah, Tonka had that
Tonka's way
snaggle.
smaller.
Yeah, Tonka.
had seen some shit.
He had the snaggle tooth.
Raymond that went shooting with us today, he was telling me, he came back to the house and we was hanging out for a little bit, and he was telling me about a dog that he encountered that was half Dachshund and half Rottweiler. And he said he was a little bit shorter than Stock, and it looked like a Rottweiler, but he was long like a Dachshund and short. And I said, I bet that would be an interesting dog.
That's fun.
And he'd probably tear your throat out if he wanted to.
I'm gonna write a book and sell it only on eBay. Well, on an e-Kindle site or something. It's gonna sell exactly 90 copies. But it's gonna be a book telling you why you shouldn't own a Dachshund. How it's the worst pet. And I do like my dogs, but man, they're just awful.
Well, that's what you said when I asked you about them or something, and you just said, "Oh, they're just awful."
To quote Downton Abbey, untrainable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't watch Downton Abbey. I just remember that one little scene because
I've never seen it, but they're cutie pies at any rate, though. We recently just got a little Jack Russell, and I always heard that they were just hell, and they were just had so much energy you couldn't do anything with them, and I don't know, maybe it's because we've been able to spend a lot of time with them. We've got him trained really well, and I've always heard they bark and everything.
They were uppity, but I didn't know.
I've heard they were over energetic and they just drive you crazy,
Oh, okay.
and like you can't take them anywhere because they bark at everything. But shoot, we took ours. We even went to my daughter's basketball game, and he barked right when we went in. The lady was like, "Hey, is that a service animal?" I said, "No, he's just got to stay with me. I promise I won't put him down." And she let me take him in, but he sat there on my lap after barking initially. He sat there on my lap the whole time and just watched the basketball game and didn't do a thing. So that it was kind of different from what I had been told about Jack Russells.
What's he mixed with again?
He's mixed with Chihuahua and Shih Tzu, but according to the Jack Russell Terrier Society of America, that the bloodline is actually not necessarily what makes you a Jack Russell. So I could take him and get certified if he has the size and attitude characteristics of the Jack Russell. So it's
Okay.
weird because they just added in. Now, if you want an American Kennel Club certified Jack Russell, it is done by Bloodline. But the Jack Russell Terrier Club of America, which predates the American Kennel Club having a place for Jack Russells, they do it based on the characteristics and size and color of the dog. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if there are other dogs that are done that way, but anyway, our little buddy Orville, who's been on one of the episodes, maybe two, he did some correspondent work for us on the Halloween
The
episode.
Halloween episode.
I think that was
really?
episode 8. Was it?
Hello.
I think looks like Stock has made friends with Tim here. Let's see if-
Finally.
Oh shoot,
Oh.
he's pulled out. He stuck his head in between Tim's legs there.
Goes for the
Yeah.
shot.
I thought it'd be fun though. It was a good look there for him, but
It was.
couldn't get the camera there in time. But yeah, so back to the Second Amendment. We'll finish this out tonight. If you're still with us, we really appreciate you sticking with us this long and putting up with all our crap to basically learn nothing. But that's all right. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you find something of value here. If you do, and if you've ever, I was going to start off with a grand thumb thing to start the episode, and I forgot. I meant to say something like, if you've ever bought a gun based off a YouTube review, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But I forgot to do that.
We weren't wearing pit vipers.
That's true. But so I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the show. A lot of you have already. I think we're at 80 subscribers last time I checked.
Is
81.
Where did you get the term? I thought was funny when we were on the range. One of the very first things I thought, because I've been to an indoor gun range, Barnett's, another place I can't remember, and I've been to private properties. That's the first time I've been to. Is that county owned or? Who owns that?
That's I think it's the Forestry Service.
Yeah,
owns that.
Forestry
Service.
Service.
No, it looked like a convenience because they had already cut all those trees out to make room for those giant power lines, and I guess that was just a good use of that space. I've never been to a fire range like that. And the first thing I thought when we first got there and got settled was there's bullets everywhere. And people will walk the streets to collect pop cans. Why is somebody not collecting this? And then later on we were talking and I said, I was kind of paranoid about it. I didn't know
That
if they was
weird
coming
old-
to kick us off. I was like, oh, it's getting closer to sunset. Maybe he's just making sure we're going to get out. Like he's kicking the kids out of the pool. And I was like, who's that guy? And you go, oh, that's just what'd you call him? A
Brass
metal
hog.
hog? A brass hog.
Hound. Brass hog. Brass hog, brass hound, whatever you want to.
Brass hog.
I'd heard Brass Hound before that, but that's the first time I heard Brass Hog. I think I like that better.
Brass hog. I mean, I just think it's fitting. Like I think that's actually pretty clever. There's a lot of metal up there if you're willing to dig it up. But brass
And
hog.
then he
is
roots
everywhere.
around through the mud
Yeah,
like
like-
a hog,
Finding truffles.
Well,
looking
he's
for the
got,
brass casing.
Surely they've got like a metal detector, right?
Oh yeah.
If you're going to
Well-
through all that, most of them, there's just a buttload of them just on the table.
Well, you only want the brass ones if you're reloading generally.
But what like just recycle? Like,
Aaron Armageddon, the Armageddon Hour says, Stock lives to bark at me, a decade of chaos. Yes, Aaron, who was our drummer in Corned Beef and the Pillbillies for a while, for a couple of years, he'd come to the house 2 nights a week for 2 years, and Stock would bark at him every time. And occasionally Stock would sit with his back turned to him and demand that Aaron pet him, and then as soon as he stopped, he'd turn around and bark at him, or sometimes even while he was still petting. So he's definitely taken better to you, Tim, than he has to Aaron. He's trying to climb on
yeah,
Tim now.
He's kind of okay.
But then Aaron is a redhead, so.
Oh, I better hide my beard. I got
Yeah.
some shimmers of red in there.
But yeah,
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
this is our brass hound here, Stocky. But well, yeah, as I was saying, we
Shove 'em
appreciate you
along.
joining us. We'd really like for you to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. And if you would like the video, that really helps us get us into more people's feeds on YouTube. If people are liking the video, it's going to show up when people are scrolling. I think we actually had last month we had 17,000 impressions on YouTube. So not that many people are watching the video. I think we just had about 1,000 views last month, but that's not too bad. We're getting people to see them. People are watching them, and
Like, do you think? I had an idea. I think if I don't tell you now, I'll forget. The way you're going to release, I don't know if you maybe say it again. A lot of people weren't here when you said it the first time that you've got another video you're going to release later that is just extra footage of the shooting and stuff.
yeah,
If you missed the first time after we kill the feed, wait for the video just to post on YouTube. I think he posted about 5 minutes in. It's about 5 minutes of gun shooting and that sort of thing, if that interests you. Maybe to help people remember, because I even forget to watch videos when I want them. Certain topics really do interest certain people, and maybe rattle off like next time. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of people that specifically wanted to do the gun one.
Yeah.
More than others. I know people that were specifically interested in the Bigfoot, cryptid, UFO, and so we have such a wide variety of just
There he is.
Carter County critiquing every topic in the world.
Yep.
You know, I think it would interest people if they knew what we were going to talk about. Like at some point in time.
I think it would interest if I knew what we were going to talk about next week. I rarely do.
It's usually like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, what do we do? And it's like, dice roll.
Well, we've had other topics come up, but as of late, I think the world just changes so fast. Like he really had to address the truckers.
Yeah,
Because at that point in time, we didn't know what was going to happen.
And how are we not talking about that tonight? I guess we're going to have to wait until
it might be
Wednesday.
inspired because of what we did today.
Yeah,
and
well,
also, isn't there an American version
there
starting?
is. We mentioned that in the last one that maybe rolling down the 40. I had some. Okay, so apparently there's been a bigger crackdown. Since we got together and we talked about it on Wednesday, yeah, they did crack down. They've been arresting people. They've been hauling some stuff off. So I saw
It looks
one.
like what they've done is because what we talked about with YouTube, which is why you probably need to consider another space just out of
For sure.
not being a hypocrite.
For sure.
YouTube initiated a new sort of policy. I don't know what they'd call it in the YouTube world.
Like a term of service or something.
Where if a video gets super viral but no one is subscribing to the channel, they'll just cut views off until people start subscribing to it again.
Really?
And it has something. I may have got that wrong, but that looked like how I read that, if I read it correctly. And they're we need to encourage the people to subscribe to the channels to get the growth going. And people speculated that it might have to do with so many on the ground people in Ottawa. And now people are in Calgary and other places, you know. Ever since they started cracking down on the truckers, people have been like, well, if you're going to haul the trucks off and stuff, I'm going to stand in the street during the day. And if you're going to run us off at night, I'll be back in the morning. And there's nothing you can do about that. If people are just going to keep showing up, then you can't arrest everybody. I guess you can, but...
Here's a meme from Quite Frankly. He's at Political Orgy on Twitter, and QuiteFrankly.tv. It's a great podcast. It's nightly at 7 p.m. He does live every night. He does a really good show. Y'all should check him out if you haven't, if you like our content. This is a meme from him. It shows the mainstream media grabbing this guy's head and opening it up and taking out the all caps are bastards, abolish bail in prisons chip and implanting. Cops should bust some trucker heads, lock them up for life. Click. Grrr! So... That's kind of related to the.
Yeah, isn't that just a perfect example of divide and conquer?
It really is.
I can't even give you a time now, but not too long ago, we had people on the other side occupying areas, and people saying they shouldn't be doing that because the media went, no, it's not really about that. It's about this. Because I really do stand behind. I really do. I've not met a single actual BLM person who actually I could physically talk to in person that was also like, yeah, we should start knocking down monuments because Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Most people are just sensible individuals. Like, well, we should probably stop curb stomping black people.
Well, I think there's that there's fairness to that, right? But the individual people who support the movement, yes, I agree. They're more like that. But when you get into the activists,
the leadership gets hijacked and then they take over the whole thing.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's what they're going to end up doing because they already are misrepresenting the truckers. There's, trying to misrepresent them as bringing drugs in protest, and then you look and it's a bouncy castle. And really, if both of those sides had just agreed at some point to go, hey, if we all just go and meet somewhere in the middle of all this, it just looks like divide and conquer. I can't find all the different ways to word it up because I feel like it's just right there in people's faces, and it's just strange to watch it go down so like that, you know.
Well, we've got the trucker thing. I mean, we're pretty far into the show, but I do want to go ahead and hit this real quick because as much as like we can get this idea out there, I think this is good. So
the guy who keeps coming up on my actually all of my YouTube suggestions, so YouTube can't be cracking down on it too much, is a guy named I think it's Viva on the Streets or Viva Frey or something like that. But he's always right on the corner.
So I'm gonna show us something real quick. Just get the stream set up for it. But this guy has what I think is pretty good logic here. So let's listen to him.
Okay, we're going to do serious TikTok here. For all you truckers out there that want to do a convoy in the United States, I'm all for that, but I'm going to tell you a better way. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to burn $1 worth of diesel fuel. You shut them trucks off. Those people, once things stop moving into New York City, they only have a 3-day supply of goods in New York City. That is a absolute 100% fact. The minute you shut those trucks off, 4 days later, people will be screaming at their congressmen to get rid of all this bullshit that they're pulling on us worldwide. Everybody could do this. Don't convoy. You guys out in Ottawa, go home. Kick it up. Have a beer. Watch a hockey game. That's all you got to do. Shut them down in a different way. They don't have to arrest you. They don't have to take your license. They don't have to confiscate anything. Confiscate their lives.
So I think he makes a good point there, don't you?
That's what I was saying last time when you said that, last time, which I guess was Wednesday, you said that there was a movement coming from California going to D.C., and that makes no sense to me. It's like, you want California changed. Why not change California? You don't need to change D.C. And there's nobody in Tennessee bitching about the truckers.
Well, there's no national vaccine mandate. It's mostly done on the local levels, and it's places like New York. It's and you have to have them to go into certain venues.
I mean, is that not cognitive dissonance to think that your state is fucked up, so let's go to Washington?
Well, that's kind of how everybody's doing, and that's the kind of idea that I'm trying to get away from. Is let's fix our local areas where we actually have some say in things, because there's how many 350 million people in the country, and you've got President Biden. I mean, what are you going to do if you disagree? If everybody in our county disagrees with whatever President Biden says, that's not enough people to matter at a federal level. That's why the power should be at our local level. That way, if our local mayor or whatever does something we don't like, we can vote them out. We actually have enough, we're close enough to that to be able to do that.
Which is kind of the problem with how our federal government's being ran. That small group of people has way too much power over all that geographic area and people.
Yep.
With as varied as a country as we are.
It really is. I mean, it's as we've talked on the episode where we talked about Civil War versus national divorce. I think the national divorce is highly preferable to the Civil War, and there's actually I forget the guy's name. I just listened to a long form interview with him. Well, there was a Canadian. He's a Canadian journalist and author. And he wrote a book. God, I wish I could think of his name. He was just on Tim Pool's podcast the other day. But he studied civil wars and civil strife conflicts. He says we're definitely in civil strife, and 66% of the experts that he spoke to in making this book about civil wars said America is likely to head to a civil war on the track that we're on. So I think a national divorce is definitely preferable to that, and that doesn't even mean that we break up the United States. It just means that we have less authority from one state over the others.
But how is it, like, here's my issue with the Civil War, like the idea of let's go into Civil War. Right now in Canada, you have not right now, the last time I checked, you had a large group of people surrounding a relatively small group of police officers who are so afraid at this point they've actually taken their name and badge number off of their uniforms. You can find videos of that. But there's so many. I mean, I hate to give the Bugs Life example, but it really is. There's so many. How many of the people that are bitching about the honking are going to say, you know what, it's time to take matters in my own hands and say, I'm going to shoot some of my fellow people? And I guess another issue, moving down from Canada, it seems to be the same situation in the United States. Last time we had a civil war, you had a clear-cut line of, yeah, we own people, come and get us, and then you had the northern aggression, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have a slavery issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the issue is more between urban and rural than it is.
Yeah, and it's not like clear north versus south either. You have a state here that feels this way, a state here that...
But you see, violence has been, but since I mean, really, before 2020, but I mean, all the way back to really the inauguration of Trump, that's when you started seeing more of the Antifa guys. Then you started seeing the right wing guys come out to. So we've seen skirmishes for over 5 years now in the streets. Your 3%ers, your Proud Boys with your Antifas and your leftist groups, your John Brown gun clubs and your BLMs. You've seen that kind of stuff, but it's not really, it's not come to the point of full-fledged combat or anything. But that's why they call it a civil strife. You do have violent events, and we have, I think, over 25 political shootouts or violent events in a year. That's considered civil strife. And we are a large country, so it's a lot easier for us to hit that than others. But it's been going on for a while though, and we've not. I don't want to see it erupt into full-fledged violence. B says Tim is now part of the pack. Stock will shovel for his paps for eternity.
Oh.
Yeah, he'll always be coming back shoveling for love with his shovel nose there. But yeah,
I guess my point is, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're afraid of civil war. But this is a different country since last time. It's not a bunch of slave-owning crazy people in the South anymore.
It would look totally different. Well, there weren't that many slave owners in the South,
well,
really.
Yeah,
but
I was trying not to, because I really don't. It's not a good example using.
Yeah,
the virus.
we can.
Different country, different situation, different people, and I just don't think people are ready to shoot each other yet. I think they're gonna take their aggression out on other people. I don't, because like Canadians, how pissed off do you have to piss a Canadian off where they're all gonna come out in mass and be like, you know what, we're not taking this shit anymore. It's just really weird to see Canadians that pissed off. I know that seems like a stereotype, but it really is a mentality of.
See, now we were talking about the Second Amendment to start the show, and that was most of it. And I know some people would say, you know, people saw the Australians getting their asses whooped over the summer and saying, don't you wish they had the Second Amendment now? Or don't you wish you guys hadn't turned in your guns? Now, that's really easy to say, but
How long does Australia not have guns?
Since the 90s. They confiscated most of the guns and killed Crocodile Dundee, the real Crocodile Dundee, because he wouldn't turn his guns in. That's a
Nice.
fun part they leave out of that.
I didn't know they did that. I remember that guy being on daytime television showing people how to eat bugs in the forest and stay alive, and how his feet had what he called a universal callus. With my own sandal I grew myself. If he didn't wear shoes very often. I didn't know they killed the fella. That makes total sense. They Ruby Ridged him though.
They sure did. And we got a comment from Aaron here, Armageddon Hour, saying Bud's Guns in Sevierville has indoor range you can rent fully auto. I think it's $100 and you get 60 rounds fully auto.
So how does that place? I know this is questions. How does that? Is that place allowed to own that gun? Is it because it's
with their FFLing and they have a Class 3 license, so you can get and if they have that licensing, they can have whatever they want. It's just it's heavily regulated.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can have like brand new full autos, you know, anything NFA item they can.
And they
get
have
without an issue.
They have AKs, they have MP5s, they have I forget which. They got it's another German submachine gun. And then they've got M16s and M4s full auto that you can go shoot. You got about 5 different guns that you can go down there and shoot for $100, 60 rounds. It's not bad. I mean, if you think about the ammo, probably that's, you know, not for them. But if you were to buy that ammo, that'd be roughly $30 to $50 worth of ammo.
Yeah.
So there you are. With
the only thing is like 60 rounds. You're like, that's in a lot of those weapons. That's 2 magazines, and that can be like, hey, you can throw that out in under a minute if you really wanted to.
Oh yeah, golly! I mean, you think about, an AK runs about 600 rounds per minute. An MP5 is about 800 rounds per minute. So you could spit through a magazine.
I wonder if they have an Ingram Mac 10 that runs 1100 rounds a minute.
No, they don't. I didn't see that on their list. I was down in Sevierville this summer, and I was actually considering doing that, but it didn't work out that I got to go by there.
I want to say there's places in Florida, like in Orlando, where you can fire like fully auto.
Oh, there's lots of places all over the country.
That was one of the funniest stories. Is it Orlando or it was called Guns and Guitars?
Yeah,
that
sounds like my kind of place.
That's a good store.
I'll have to find that picture and figure out where the store was. I was like, that's great.
Well, we'd been talking about doing, one of really the first things the episodes that I wanted to do when we started this show was a gun episode. I think we talked about it way back then. So I'm glad we finally got to do it, and I want to do another one, maybe where we actually can look at a few of the firearms and maybe talk about some of the more nuances between them. And I don't know if you guys would be interested in that. It's not really a gun channel, but I like to watch a lot of gun channels, and I have a lot of guns and like to talk about them. So maybe we'll do that again if anybody's interested in that.
And also, I guess that shameless plug, how you mentioned Grantham. I've been loving his like science videos.
Yeah,
I've been
Dr.
loving
Grantham,
those.
those have been good. Yeah, and since he's been getting those ballistic torsos, those
things are cool.
Yeah, I think they're like a couple $1,000s a piece, I think is what he said. It'd be really fun to shoot one of those though. So if anybody's watching that has access to those, would like to donate those to us for another episode, we'd be glad to plug.
Or if you want to donate any sort of ballistic gel or something.
Yeah, ballistic gel, ammo, magazines, whatever you want. We'll take it and go shoot it and use it and put it on the video, and we'll acknowledge you and shout you out for it.
Hey, and if you're in the area, come out and join us.
Yeah, that's right. I want to thank our buddies Raymond, Michael, Kevin, and
Ran into Ben and his girlfriend.
yeah, and gosh, what was that? I'm terrible with names. Daryl.
Yeah.
Daryl. Yeah, I told Kevin that I would forget his name, and then I didn't, and then I didn't forget Daryl either. So we had a good group of friends and viewers come and shoot with us. It was a lot of fun. Like, again, we'd like to do it again. So, just we'll probably wait a little while, give it a little time to mellow, and get people clamoring for it again. But we want to thank you for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and call it a night. We're going to probably do a Wednesday night live stream for news again. We're going to have to hit, Jean-Luc Brunel. Did you hear about that? We're going to have to hit that. An Epstein associate. He was a modeling agent. Found dead in his French jail cell.
Oh, and his cameras were off.
His cameras were off, and he allegedly committed suicide. Is Ghislaine Maxwell next? I don't know. She's already been through trial, so if she's ratted, she probably is already ratted.
Probably the one killing him.
Yeah, I told you. I think she in the episode we did with Crash. I think she's the boss lady.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But
it does make sense. She'd be I think Snakehead would not be the thing. I think it's like finding babies and stuff too. But it makes total sense that she would be the ringleader, because they've busted several other human trafficking. They found out that trafficking rings, and found that the women were the masterminds and that the men were the muscle.
That's right.
What was that Jen video, whatever it was? There was one in LA where they were literally branding the women when they were in.
Yeah, the Nixium. Yeah. And that one was ran by a man, but it was he used.
But it was the woman that was like recruiting.
He used the women to
and
recruit.
Really,
yeah.
Brainwashed them into thinking that this was okay.
Yeah.
And Joel Lane was the one doing that.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, did you? I noticed
creepy.
There was so I was interested. I was following this, and I started doing a little research, and Stormy Daniels has the Nixium brand under one of her tattoos.
Does she really?
She sure does.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
And I just realized I called Epstein Bourdain for their manager.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Epstein was too creepy. Did you see the video? I think it was after it came out that he was in POS. A lot of the celebrities that had been seen with him, pictures that were coming out of the woodwork, people were finding the leaked manifest. Everybody in the world was trying to pin connections to this guy. And there was one. He was I think it was Steven Pinker. Is a scientist. Or is he a philosopher? I can't remember.
I'm not familiar.
I want to say Steven Pinker. He was one of the ones that came out right immediately and said, "Hey, I'm just going to tell you right now. I met him once on his island, and that's the only time I went. And he could prove, yeah, I went there one time." And he came out and said that he didn't seem like he was what he was. He seemed more of a. It seemed more like he was not a billionaire investor. It seemed like a guy who was using billionaire investing to launder all of his money, or as like a guise. He seemed like he was full of shit, is what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that a celebrity professor meets a lot of people full of shit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to me. It was a blackmail ring.
Mm-hmm.
You get people in positions of power down there, and get them to do shit they don't want other people to know about, and then you tell them, hey, if you don't vote on